Maria Alvarez arrived at Westlake Community College just as the evening shadows began to stretch across the campus. She parked her old Honda in the far corner of the lot, where the security lights flickered uncertainly. The 42-year-old woman gathered her cleaning supplies from the trunk, her movements efficient from years of routine. She tied her dark hair back with a worn elastic band and straightened her uniform before heading toward the science building. The hallways were mostly empty at this hour. A few dedicated students hunched over laptops in study areas, and the occasional professor hurried past with arms full of papers. Maria nodded politely when anyone made eye contact, but most people looked through her as if she were just another piece of furniture. She didn't mind. The invisibility gave her a kind of freedom. "Evening, Pete," she called to the security guard who always saved the last donut from the faculty lounge for her. "Hey there, Maria. Kids doing okay?" he asked, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners. "Lucia got an A on her history project and Miguel's baseball team won yesterday," she answered with pride warming her voice. Her children were her everything, the reason she worked 2 jobs and the source of her determination to give them opportunities she never had. As Maria moved through the building, she followed her usual pattern: empty the trash bins first, then dust, and finally mop. The mathematics department was always her favorite. Unlike the biology labs with their strange smells or the art studios with their impossible-to-remove paint splatters, the math classrooms held a special kind of magic. Tonight, like many nights before, she paused at the door of room 237. The lights were still on, and she could see several graduate students gathered around Professor Richard Thornton. The professor was known throughout the college for his brilliant mind and equally impressive arrogance. His calculus classes were both coveted and feared by students. Maria stood quietly in the doorway, waiting for an appropriate moment to enter. Professor Thornton was explaining something at the whiteboard, his hand moving confidently as he wrote a complex equation. She should have moved on to another room and returned later, but she found herself transfixed by the symbols on the board. There was a beauty to them that she couldn't quite explain. The application of integration by parts here allows us to solve what would otherwise be a very stubborn differential equation, Professor Thornton was saying. His voice carried the certainty of someone who had never doubted his own intelligence. Maria's eyes followed the equation, mentally working through the steps as he wrote them. She had seen similar problems in the old calculus textbook she'd found in a free box outside the library 3 years ago. That book, along with dozens of online math videos watched on her children's hand-me-down laptop, had become her secret passion. She must have made some small noise, because suddenly all eyes in the room turned toward her. "Can I help you, Professor?" Thornton asked, his tone making it clear that her presence was an unwelcome interruption. "Sorry to disturb you," Maria said softly. "I'm just here to clean." One of the graduate students, a young man with kind eyes, moved his backpack to make room for her to reach the trash bin, but Professor Thornton was staring at her with sudden interest. "You were watching quite intently," he said. "Do you find calculus fascinating?" Maria felt her cheeks warm. "I was just waiting for a good time to come in." A smirk crossed the professor's face as he turned to his students. "Perhaps our friend here would like to try her hand at solving this problem." His voice dripped with mockery. "What do you say? Care to show us how it's done?" The graduate students shifted uncomfortably. One woman shot Maria an apologetic look. "Professor, maybe we should continue with," began one student, but Thornton waved him off. No, I'm curious. Our cleaning lady has been studying this problem quite carefully." He held out the marker toward Maria. "Unless, of course, you'd prefer to stick to something more in your range of expertise." The room fell silent. Maria stood frozen, the cleaning cart handle still in her grip. She should walk away. She should just apologize and come back later. That would be the sensible thing to do. But something inside her, perhaps the same something that had pushed her to pick up that first math book, wouldn't let her back down. Memories flashed through her mind. Her father telling her that school wasn't important for girls who would just get married anyway. The guidance counselor who suggested something practical when she'd mentioned college. The years of struggle, after dropping out to help support her family when her mother got sick. Without a word, Maria set down her cleaning supplies and walked to the front of the room. The floor seemed to stretch endlessly, and she could feel every eye on her. "When you'll know her." She reached Professor Thornton. She held out her hand for the marker. His eyebrows rose in surprise, but he handed it over, his expression now amused as if watching a child pretend to be a doctor. The whiteboard loomed before her. The problem was a complex integration that required multiple techniques to solve. Maria's heart pounded in her ears, but her hand remained steady as she uncapped the marker. She began to write. At first there were quiet snickers behind her. Then, as she continued to work methodically through the problem, applying integration, by parts and then a substitution, the room grew silent again. But a different kind of silence, a stunned silence. Maria's mind cleared as she worked, focusing only on the numbers and symbols before her. This was familiar territory. While others slept, she had spent countless nights at her kitchen table, working through problems like this, by the dim light of a table lamp, careful not to wake her children. When a problem stumped her, she would research different approaches until something clicked. When she finished, she stepped back and recapped the marker. The solution was complete. Not only that, but she had found a slightly more efficient approach than the one Professor Thornton had been demonstrating. She turned to face the room. 7 faces stared back at her in complete shock. Professor Thornton's mouth had actually dropped open slightly. That's correct," he finally said, his voice having lost its mocking edge. "In fact, you used Watson's method of substitution, which is actually more elegant in this case than what I was showing." "I'm sorry if I interrupted your class," Maria said quietly, setting the marker down on the tray. "I'll come back later to clean." "Wait," Professor Thornton said as she turned to leave. "How did you learn to do that?" Maria hesitated, suddenly self-conscious. "Books, videos, I practice when I can." "You've had no formal training in advanced mathematics?" asked one of the graduate students, disbelief evident in her voice. Maria shook her head. "I didn't finish high school, but I've always liked numbers. They make sense to me." Professor Thornton was looking at her differently now, reassessing the woman in the cleaning uniform as if seeing her for the first time. The mockery had vanished from his expression, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. "Why, aren't you in school?" he asked bluntly. Maria smiled sadly. "Life happens. I had to work. Then I had children. Now they need things. School supplies, sports equipment, college savings." She shrugged. "Maybe someday." A female graduate student stepped forward. "You should talk to Dr. Rivera in the department. There are programs for non-traditional students, scholarships." Maria picked up her cleaning supplies, suddenly uncomfortable with all the attention. "Maybe. I should get back to work now." As she pushed her cart out of the room, she could hear the buzz of conversation erupting behind her. Her cheeks burned with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. She had never demonstrated her mathematical knowledge to anyone before. It had been her private world, a secret garden she tended when no one was watching. She didn't know then that this moment would change everything. She didn't know that by this time tomorrow, Dr. Elena Rivera would be looking for her, or that within a week she would be sitting in the department chair's office discussing possibilities she had long ago stopped considering. She didn't know that her children would beam with pride when she told them what had happened, or that Miguel would say, "I always knew you were the smartest mom in the world." All Maria knew as she continued her cleaning rounds was that for once in her life, she had been truly seen, and it felt both terrifying and wonderful. The next morning, Maria woke before her alarm. She'd barely slept, replaying the events in the classroom over and over in her mind. Had she really stood up to Professor Thornton? Had she really solved that calculus problem in front of all those smart college students? The memory felt almost like a dream. She moved quietly through her small apartment, careful not to wake Lucia and Miguel. The coffee maker gurgled as she packed lunches for her children, peanut butter and jelly for Miguel, turkey and cheese for Lucia. Normal things, ordinary things that anchored her life. "Mom, you're up early," Lucia said, appearing in the kitchen doorway. At 16, she was growing into a young woman with Maria's dark eyes and quiet determination. Couldn't sleep, Maria admitted, pouring coffee into her chipped mug. Is everything okay? Did something happen at work? Maria hesitated. She hadn't planned to tell her children about last night. What was there to tell, really? That their mother, who cleaned buildings for a living, had shown off her hobby to a bunch of educated people who probably already forgot about it. But looking at her daughter, this child who worked so hard in school because Maria had always stressed that education was the path to a better life, she decided to share the story. Something did happen, Maria began, gesturing for Lucia to sit at their small kitchen table. You know how I sometimes look at those old math books? Lucia nodded, her eyes curious. The ones you hide under your bed like they're secret magazines? Maria laughed. I don't hide them. Mom, you totally hide them. Miguel and I have known about your weird math thing for years. As Maria recounted the events of the previous night, Lucia's expression changed from amusement to surprise and then to something like awe. You showed up a college professor? At his own subject? Lucia's voice rose, waking Miguel, who stumbled into the kitchen rubbing his eyes. Why are you so loud? The 14-year-old grumbled, opening the refrigerator. Mom's a secret math genius, Lucia announced. She embarrassed some professor last night. I didn't embarrass him, Maria corrected quickly. I just solved a problem. A calculus problem, Lucia emphasized to her brother. The super hard kind. Miguel looked at his mother with new interest. For real? That's kinda cool, Mom. Maria felt her cheeks warm. It's not a big deal, I just like math, always have. Why didn't you ever say anything? Lucia asked. You're always checking our homework, but you never mentioned you could do calculus. Maria shrugged, suddenly feeling exposed. It never came up. Besides, it's just something I do for fun. Normal people watch TV for fun, Miguel said, grinning. You're officially weird, Mom. The three of them laughed, and Maria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Her children weren't embarrassed by her secret hobby. If anything, they seemed impressed. So what happens now? Lucia asked. Nothing happens, Maria replied, glancing at the clock. You two get ready for school, and I get ready for my shift at the diner. But something did happen. When Maria arrived at the college that evening for her cleaning job, she found a note taped to her supply closet. Please see Dr. Elena Rivera in the mathematics department, room 242, when you arrive. Maria's stomach tightened. Was she in trouble? Had Professor Thornton complained about her interrupting his class? She considered ignoring the note, but her mother had raised her to face problems head-on. After changing into her work uniform, she made her way to room 242. The door was open, revealing a cluttered office with books stacked on every surface. A woman with silver-streaked black hair looked up from her computer. Can I help you? She asked. I'm Maria Alvarez, from the cleaning staff. I was told to see Dr. Rivera. The woman's face brightened with recognition. Yes, Maria, please come. And I'm Elena Rivera, chair of the mathematics department. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Close the door behind you if you don't mind. Maria sat stiffly, her hands folded in her lap. If this is about last night, I apologize for interfering with Professor Thornton's class. Dr. Rivera waved away her concern. Richard Thornton could benefit from having his class interrupted more often, especially by someone who knows what they're doing. She leaned forward, her eyes curious. He showed me what you wrote on the board. He also mentioned you're self-taught? Maria nodded, unsure where this conversation was heading. That's extraordinary, Dr. Rivera continued. The approach you used for that integration problem is typically taught in advanced calculus courses. Where did you learn it? I found a book called Advanced Techniques in Calculus at a library sale a few years ago, Maria explained. It took me a while to understand it, but there were examples that helped. Dr. Rivera's eyebrows rose. You taught yourself from Stanley Watson's book? That text is notoriously difficult, even for undergraduate math majors. Maria shrugged. I had time. When the kids were younger, I couldn't go out much in the evening, so I'd study after they went to bed. How far did you get in school, Maria? The question stung a little, as it always did. 10th grade. My mother got sick, and someone needed to work. Dr. Rivera nodded thoughtfully. And you've never taken any college courses? No, ma'am. Couldn't afford it. And without a high school diploma, she let the sentence trail off. I see. Dr. Rivera tapped her pen against her desk. What if you could? Take courses, I mean. Maria smiled politely. That's kind of you, but I work 2 jobs to support my family. I don't have time for school. What if we made time? Dr. Rivera pressed. There's a program here for non-traditional students. You could start with getting your GED, then move into college courses. We have scholarships, work-study options, flexible scheduling. Maria felt something dangerous stir in her chest. Hope. She quickly tamped it down. Dr. Rivera, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but people like me don't just suddenly go to college. Why not? The older woman challenged. I did. Maria looked up in surprise. I was a single mother with 2 children, working as a bank teller, Dr. Rivera continued. I didn't start college until I was 38. Now I'm department chair. She leaned forward. The difference between us is that someone saw my potential and pushed me. I'm trying to do the same for you. For a moment, Maria allowed herself to imagine it. Sitting in a classroom as a student, not a cleaner. Learning openly instead of in secret. Showing Lucia and Miguel that it was never too late. But reality quickly reasserted itself. I can't afford to work less. My daughter wants to go to college in 2 years. I need to save for her. What if helping yourself is also the best way to help her? Dr. Rivera asked gently. Think about the message it would send to your children. Think about the doors it could open. Better jobs, more opportunities. Maria felt tears prick at her eyes and blinked them away. I don't know. Just think about it, Dr. Rivera said, handing her a folder. These are the forms you'd need to apply for the program and for financial assistance. My number is on the card inside. Call me anytime with questions. She smiled warmly. No pressure, but I think you'd be an asset to this department, Maria. That night, as Maria cleaned the science building, her mind was far away from mops and trash bins. The folder Dr. Rivera had given her felt like it was burning a hole in her locker. Could she really go back to school? Was that even possible for someone like her? When she reached room 237, Professor Thornton's classroom, she paused. The lights were off, but moonlight spilled through the windows, illuminating the clean whiteboard where last night she had briefly stepped out of her invisible role and been seen. Maria flipped on the lights and began her usual routine. As she emptied the trash, she noticed a textbook left on one of the desks. Introduction to Real Analysis by Thompson and Lee. She picked it up, intending to place it in the Lost and Found, but it fell open to a chapter on sequences and series, almost. Without thinking, she sat down at the desk and began reading. The material was challenging but fascinating, an extension of ideas she'd been working on from her own books. She became so absorbed that she lost track of time working through practice problems in her cleaning notepad. Maria jumped at the sound. Professor Thornton stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I'm so sorry, she said quickly, standing up. I found this book and decided to do the problem set on page 394, he finished, walking toward her. I left the book there intentionally, for you. Maria stared at him in confusion. I spoke with Elena, Dr. Rivera, this afternoon. He explained. She mentioned she'd offered you information about our non-traditional student program. She did. And? Maria sighed. And it's a nice thought, but not very practical. Professor Thornton picked up her notepad, examining her work. You've solved problems 3 through 7 correctly. 8 has a small error in the second step. He pointed to her work. You're already doing college-level mathematics, Mrs. Alvarez. The only difference is that you're not getting credit for it. It's Ms. She corrected automatically. And solving problems in a notebook isn't the same as being a student. No, he agreed. It's harder. You're doing this without guidance, without resources, without support. He met her eyes directly. What happened last night? I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on your job and I was wrong. Maria wasn't sure how to respond. An apology was the last thing she'd expected from the arrogant professor. I've been teaching for 23 years, he continued. I've seen thousands of students. What you have, this natural mathematical intuition combined with determination, it's rare. He placed the textbook in her hands. This is yours now. Consider it the first book in your college career. Maria looked down at the book, its cover smooth and new. I haven't decided to apply yet. You will, he said with certainty. And when you do, I'd like to help. I have connections with several foundations that fund scholarships for women in STEM fields. Why would you do that? Maria asked, genuinely puzzled. You don't even know me. Professor Thornton smiled, and for the first time there was no mockery in his expression. Let's just say I'm making amends for my poor judgment. Besides, the math world needs more people with your kind of talent. As Maria walked home that night, the textbook tucked safely in her bag next to Dr. Rivera's folder, she felt something she hadn't experienced in a very long time: possibility. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time in years she allowed herself to wonder. What if? When she arrived home, she found Lucia still awake, studying at the kitchen table. You're up late, Maria said, setting her keys in the bowl by the door. Big test tomorrow, Lucia explained, then noticed her mother's expression. What? You look different. Maria sat down across from her daughter and pulled out the textbook and folder. What's all this? Lucia asked. I'm thinking about going back to school, Maria said, the words feeling strange in her mouth. Starting with getting my GED, then maybe taking some college classes. Lucia's face lit up. Mom, that's amazing. Miguel and I can help. We can quiz you and stuff. It won't be easy, Maria warned. I'd still have to work, and I might not be around as much. Lucia reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand. You've always told us education is the most important thing. It's time you followed your own advice. Maria smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. There would be obstacles ahead: money, time, her own self-doubt. But looking at her daughter's proud face, she knew that whatever happened, she had already taught her children the most important lesson. It's never too late to chase your dreams. 2. Weeks after her encounter with Professor Thornton, Maria sat at her kitchen table surrounded by study materials. Her GED preparation books were splayed open, colorful sticky notes marking important pages. A half-empty cup of coffee sat cold beside her as she frowned at a practice test. This doesn't make sense, she muttered, tapping her pencil against the social studies section. History had never been her strong point. Numbers spoke to her clearly, but remembering which war happened when or who signed what document felt like trying to memorize a phone book. The apartment door opened, and Miguel bounded in, his baseball uniform dusty from practice. How'd it go? Maria asked, grateful for the distraction. Coach says I might start as pitcher next game, he announced, dropping his backpack and heading straight for the refrigerator. How's the studying? Maria sighed. Math and science are fine. The rest? She gestured helplessly at the books. Miguel peered over her shoulder. Civil War stuff? That's easy. Lucia made flashcards when she took American history last year. I bet she still has them. That would help, Maria admitted. Where is your sister? Library study group said she'd be home for dinner. Miguel pulled out leftovers and began assembling a sandwich that seemed to include every possible ingredient. Hey, Mom, the guys were asking about you today. Maria looked up. About me? Why? Miguel shrugged, his mouth now full. Coach Wilson told his wife about you. You know, the math thing. And she teaches at Jefferson Middle School, so she told some people, and now everybody's talking about it. Heat rose to Maria's cheeks. What exactly are they saying? Just that you're super smart and going back to school? It's cool, Mom. Like, actually cool. Tommy Wilson said his mom said you're in, what's the word? Inspirational. He pronounced the word carefully, clearly proud to use it. Maria wasn't sure how to feel about being the subject of neighborhood gossip, even positive gossip. For most of her adult life, she'd tried to blend in, to not call attention to herself. Now suddenly, people were talking about her, having opinions about her choices. "You're not mad, are you?" Miguel asked, noticing her expression. "No, not mad. Just not used to people knowing my business." "Well, get used to it," Miguel grinned. "Lucia put it on Instagram." "She what?" "Posted a picture of you studying with some caption about how proud she is of her mom going back to school at 42. Got like 100 likes." Maria groaned but couldn't help smiling. Her children's enthusiasm was both embarrassing and touching. The phone rang, interrupting their conversation. Maria didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. "Hello? Ms. Alvarez? This is Pete from campus security. There's someone here asking for you." Maria frowned. "I'm not scheduled to work tonight." "It's not about work. It's Dr. Rivera from the math department. Says she's been trying to reach you." Maria had been avoiding Dr. Rivera's calls, unsure of what to say about the program application sitting half-completed on her dresser. The GED prep was challenging enough. The thought of actual college classes still seemed too far-fetched. "Tell her I'll call her back tomorrow, please." There was a pause, then Pete's voice returned. "She says she's found something important, something about a scholarship opportunity with a deadline." Maria sighed. "Tell her I'll be there in 30 minutes. After leaving Miguel with strict instructions about homework and not answering the door, Maria drove to the college. The campus was quieter than usual, with only a few evening classes in session. She found Dr. Rivera waiting in the mathematics department lounge, a thick folder in her hands. "I'm sorry to ambush you like this," Dr. Rivera said as Maria entered. "But you weren't returning my calls and this deadline is important." "I've been busy," Maria explained weakly. "The GED prep is taking all my free time." "How's that going?" Dr. Rivera asked, genuine interest in her voice. "The math and science parts are fine. The rest is harder than I expected." Dr. Rivera nodded, sympathetically. "That's normal. We all have our strengths. Have you considered getting a tutor?" "I can't afford—" "The college has a free tutoring center," Dr. Rivera interrupted. "For GED students too, not just enrolled college students." Oh. Maria hadn't known that. There was so much she didn't know about how education worked now. It made her feel small and unprepared. Dr. Rivera seemed to sense her discomfort. "Maria, I didn't ask you here to pressure you. I found a scholarship opportunity that seems perfect for you, but the application is due next week." She slid the folder across the table. The Ramirez Foundation offers full scholarships to Latina women pursuing degrees in STEM fields. The requirements include financial need and demonstrated aptitude in mathematics or science. Maria opened the folder cautiously. "Full scholarship? That sounds too good to be true." "It's competitive," Dr. Rivera admitted, "but your situation is compelling. A self-taught mathematician with obvious natural talent, returning to education while supporting 2 children? That's exactly the kind of candidate they're looking for." Maria skimmed the application. Essay questions, financial disclosures, letters of recommendation. It was overwhelming. "I don't even have my GED yet," she pointed out, "and the application requires transcripts." "I've spoken with the foundation director," Dr. Rivera explained. "They're willing to accept your GED scores when you complete them, along with a skills assessment from our department. Professor Thornton and I would both be happy to write recommendation letters." Maria looked up, surprised. "Professor Thornton? Really?" Dr. Rivera smiled. "He's been quite vocal about you in department meetings. I believe his exact words were, 'the most intuitive mathematical mind I've encountered in a decade.'" Maria felt her cheeks warm again. "He's exaggerating." "Richard Thornton doesn't exaggerate about mathematics," Dr. Rivera said firmly. "If anything, he's overly critical. The fact that he's championing you speaks volumes." They sat in silence for a moment while Maria looked through the application materials. "What if I'm not ready?" she finally asked, voicing her deepest fear. "What if I can't keep up with the younger students who've been in school all along?" Dr. Rivera leaned forward. "May I tell you a story? When I went back to school at 38, I was terrified. I'd been out of a classroom for nearly 20 years. My first day, I sat in the back row of my algebra class, convinced everyone could tell I didn't belong. She smiled at the memory. By the end of the semester, I was tutoring half the class. Age gave me something they didn't have, perspective and discipline. But you were always smart, Maria countered. You were meant for this. And you weren't? Dr. Rivera raised an eyebrow. Maria, people who aren't meant for this don't teach themselves calculus from library books. Put that way, it did seem ridiculous. Maria had never thought of her hobby as anything special. It was just something she enjoyed, like some people enjoyed crossword puzzles or gardening. The scholarship would cover tuition and books, Dr. Rivera continued. There's also a living stipend to offset reduced work hours. You could cut back to part-time at one of your jobs. The possibility began to take solid form in Maria's mind. Maybe she could do this. Maybe it wasn't just a fantasy. Will you at least apply? Dr. Rivera pressed. What's the worst that could happen? They could say no, Maria answered. And you'd be exactly where you are now, Dr. Rivera pointed out. But if they say yes? If they said yes, everything would change. That was both thrilling and terrifying. I'll help you with the application, Dr. Rivera offered. We can work on it together. Maria took a deep breath. Okay, I'll apply. Doctor? Rivera beamed. Wonderful. We can start right now if you have time. For the next 2 hours, they worked on the application. Dr. Rivera helped Maria craft her personal statement, describing her journey from high school dropout to self-taught mathematician. As Maria spoke about her love of numbers, about the peace she found in solving complex problems, she felt a certainty settle over her. This was right. This was what she was meant to do. When Maria arrived home that evening, she found Lucia and Miguel waiting for her, both wearing expressions of barely contained excitement. What's going on? Maria asked, setting down her bag. Lucia thrust a large envelope toward her. This came for you, special delivery, from the college. Maria opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from the testing center, along with her GED practice exam results. I asked them to score it right away, Lucia explained. Ms. Chen, my English teacher, knows the GED coordinator. Maria skimmed the results, hardly believing what she was seeing. She had passed the practice test with flying colors, not just the math and science sections, but all of them. I don't understand, she said. The history section? We helped, Miguel said proudly. While you were at work, Lucia and I made you study guides and recorded audio notes so you could listen during your breaks. We've been quizzing you for weeks without you noticing. Tears sprang to Maria's eyes. You two did that for me? You've been helping us with school our whole lives, Lucia said simply. It was our turn to help you. Maria pulled both her children into a tight hug, overwhelmed with gratitude and love. For so long, she had been the one sacrificing, the one making sure her children had opportunities she never had. Now they were supporting her dreams with the same fierce devotion. I applied for a scholarship today, she told them, wiping away tears. If I get it, I might be able to go to college, for real, to study mathematics. You'll get it, Miguel said with the absolute confidence of youth. They'd be stupid not to pick you. And if you don't, Lucia added practically, we'll find another way. People like us always do. People like us. The words echoed in Maria's mind. People who didn't give up. People who found a way no matter the obstacles. For the first time, she allowed herself to fully embrace the possibility that her life could be different, that the path she had been on since 16 wasn't the only one available to her. That night after the children were asleep, Maria sat at her small desk by the window. She opened Professor Thornton's textbook, her textbook now, and began working through a new chapter. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime rhythm. Inside, with numbers dancing across the page, Maria felt the quiet joy of someone who had finally found her way home. The envelope sat unopened on Maria's kitchen counter for nearly an hour after the mail arrived. It was thick, a good sign, people said. Rejection letters were usually thin. Still, she couldn't bring herself to open it, not yet. This moment of not knowing, of still having hope, felt safer somehow. "Mom, did you check the mail?" Lucia called, bursting through the front door. Her backpack hit the floor with a thud and she froze when she saw the envelope. "Is that—" Maria nodded. "From the Ramirez Foundation. And you haven't opened it?" Lucia rushed to the counter and picked up the envelope, examining it from all angles as if its thickness might reveal the contents. "Mom, come on. It's been 3 months of waiting. I know, Maria took a deep breath. What if it's a no? Lucia put her hands on her hips in a pose that reminded Maria eerily of herself. "Then we try something else. But this looks thick." "Thick is good." She held the envelope out. "Open it." Maria's fingers trembled slightly as she took it. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind. She had passed her GED exam on the first try, shocking herself and delighting her children. Dr. Rivera and Professor Thornton had written her recommendation letters for the scholarship. She'd even completed a special mathematics assessment that Professor Thornton had arranged, scoring higher than many of the college's junior math majors. And through it all, word had spread. The cleaning woman with the mathematical mind. The janitor, who could outcalculate professors. People at the college smiled at her now. Some even knew her name. It was strange and uncomfortable and also somehow wonderful. "Mom," Lucia prompted, interrupting her thoughts. "The envelope?" "Right." Maria slid her finger under the seal and pulled out a stack of papers. The top sheet had the foundation's letterhead. "Dear Ms. Alvarez," she read aloud, "we are pleased to inform you." She stopped, her vision suddenly blurry with tears. What does it say?" Lucia grabbed the letter. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Ramirez Foundation Scholarship for the upcoming academic year," she read, her voice rising with excitement. "The scholarship covers full tuition, books, and a living stipend of $1,500 per month for up to 4 years of undergraduate study in a STEM field." $500 a month? Maria whispered, hardly believing it. "That's almost what I make cleaning." "Mom, do you know what this means?" Lucia was practically bouncing. "You can quit one of your jobs, you can actually go to college full-time." The reality was slowly sinking in. Maria would be a college student, a real, full-time college student at the age of 42. "I need to call your brother," she said, reaching for her phone. "And Dr. Rivera and—" The phone rang in her hand, startling her. The caller ID showed Westlake Community College. "Hello?" she answered. "Maria, it's Elena Rivera. I hope I'm not interrupting." "No, I was just about to call you," Maria said, her voice shaky with emotion. "I got the scholarship, the full amount." There was a moment of silence, then what sounded like a muffled cheer. "That's wonderful. I knew you would. We've been on pins and needles waiting to hear." "We?" "The entire department," Dr. Rivera explained. "Richard's been checking his email every hour for the past week. We're all so excited for you." The idea that an entire department of professors was interested in her future was still baffling to Maria. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "Without your help—" "You earned this," Dr. Rivera interrupted firmly. "We just pointed you toward the door. You walked through it on your own merit." After promising to come to campus the next day to discuss enrollment details, Maria hung up. Lucia had already texted Miguel, who responded with a string of excited emojis and a promise to bring home celebratory ice cream. That evening, the small apartment buzzed with an energy it hadn't known in years. Miguel invited his baseball coach and his family. Lucia's English teacher, Ms. Chen, arrived with a cake that said, "Congratulations, scholar," in blue icing. Even Pete from campus security stopped by with his wife, bringing a gift bag containing a scientific calculator and a coffee mug that read, "Never too late to learn." As Maria looked around at the unexpected gathering, at her children beaming, with pride at near strangers celebrating her achievement, she felt a wall inside her crumble. For so long she had kept her love of mathematics private, hidden like a shameful secret. She had made herself small, defined by her jobs, by her struggles, by what she lacked, rather than what she possessed. "Speech," Miguel called out, and others joined in. "Speech, speech," Maria shook her head, embarrassed. "I'm not good at speeches. Just say what you feel, Mom," Lucia encouraged. Maria looked at the expectant faces around her. What did she feel? Relief? Joy? Terror? All of those, yes, but something else too. Something deeper. "I never thought this would happen," she began, hesitantly. "People like me don't usually get second chances. We work our jobs, we take care of our families, we get by." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "For a long time, mathematics was just something I did in secret, when no one was watching. It was like having a friend that no one else could see or understand." She glanced at her children, who were listening intently. "But then something happened. Someone saw me, really saw me, and then other people started seeing me too." Her eyes filled with tears, but she continued. "I'm standing here tonight because people like Dr. Rivera and Professor Thornton believed I was worth investing in. Because my children," her voice broke slightly, "my amazing children never doubted I could do this, even when I doubted myself." Maria took a deep breath. "I don't know what happens next. College is going to be hard. I'm older than most students, I've been out of school for decades, but I'm going to try my best. And whatever happens, I won't hide anymore. I won't make myself small." The room erupted in applause. Lucia hugged her tightly, and Miguel gave her a high five that turned into an awkward but heartfelt embrace. For the first time in years, Maria felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was beginning to live. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Maria reduced her hours at the diner and arranged a more flexible cleaning schedule at the college. She attended orientation, registered for classes, and bought textbooks that made her previous self-study materials look like child's play. The day before classes started, Maria found herself standing in front of her closet, suddenly panicked. What did 42-year-old college freshman wear? She didn't want to look like she was trying too hard to fit in with students half her age, but her usual jeans and t-shirts felt too casual for this new identity. "Wear what makes you comfortable," Lucia advised, watching her mother's crisis from the doorway. "No one cares what you have on, they'll be too worried about themselves." "Easy for you to say," Maria muttered. "You're young. You know what's cool." Lucia rolled her eyes. "Mom, you're going to be a math major. No one expects you to be cool." Despite her daughter's teasing, Maria was grateful for the advice. In the end, she chose dark jeans, a simple blouse, and the comfortable walking shoes she'd bought with her first scholarship stipend. Professional, but not stuffy. A student, but an adult one. The morning of her first day, Maria woke before her. Alarm, her stomach tight with anxiety. She'd been on the college campus hundreds of times, but never like this. Never as someone who belonged in the classrooms rather than cleaning them. Miguel was already up, surprisingly, making breakfast. "Thought, you might need brain food," he explained, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs toward her. "First day and all." Maria's throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you, mijo." "Don't cry," he warned, looking alarmed. "It's just eggs." She laughed, blinking back tears. Not crying, just grateful. Her first class was Calculus 2 with Professor Thornton. She'd tested out of calculus based on her self-study, a fact that still filled her with quiet pride. As she walked into the classroom, 10 minutes early, she felt painfully conspicuous. Most of the students already seated were in their late teens or early 20s. They glanced up as she entered, then returned to their conversations or phones. No, one stared. No one pointed. She was just another student, if an older one. Maria chose a seat in the middle of the room, not hiding in the back, but not boldly claiming the front row either. She arranged her notebook and pencils neatly, then sat with hands folded, waiting. "Is this seat taken?" Maria looked up to see a woman about her own age, perhaps a few years older, gesturing to the chair beside her. "No, go ahead." The woman sat, down with a grateful smile. "Thank God, another adult. I was worried I'd be the only one." She extended her hand. "I'm Diane, 46 and terrified." Maria felt herself relax slightly as they shook hands. Maria, 42 and also terrified. First semester? Diane asked. Maria nodded. You? Second attempt, Diane admitted. I tried 10 years ago but had to drop out when my husband got sick. Now my kids are in college themselves, so I figured, why not me too? Before Maria could respond, Professor Thornton entered the room. The casual conversations died down as he set his materials on the desk. Good morning, he began, scanning the room. When his eyes reached Maria, he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. Welcome to Calculus 2. Some of you are here because you need this for your major. Some of you are here because you genuinely enjoy mathematics. Regardless of your reason, be prepared to work harder than you've ever worked before. As he began, reviewing the syllabus, Maria felt a calm settle over her. This was familiar territory. The symbols on the board spoke a language she had taught herself over many solitary nights. Only now she wasn't alone with her books and borrowed knowledge. She was part of something larger, a community of learners. When Professor Thornton began, the first lesson, diving immediately into applications of the definite integral, Maria found herself raising her hand to answer a question. The words came easily, confidently. This was where she belonged. After class, as students filed out, Professor Thornton called her name. Ms. Alvarez, a moment, please. Diane gave her a curious look. First day and already the professor knows your name? Impressive. Maria smiled. It's a long story. When the room had emptied, Professor Thornton approached her desk. Well, how does it feel to be on this side of the classroom? Strange, Maria admitted. But good. Really good. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. The problem we worked on today, you've seen it before? Yes, in the Watson book you gave me. Chapter 4. I thought so. Your solution approach was elegant. He gathered his papers. You know, there's a position open for a peer tutor in the math lab. The pay isn't much, but it would look good on your transcript. I've already recommended you. Maria stared at him in surprise. Me? A tutor? But I just started. And yet you can already solve problems that stump most second-year students. He shrugged. Think about it. As Maria walked to her next class, English composition, which terrified her far more than calculus, she felt like she was walking in a dream. 3 months ago, she had been invisible, just another person doing her job and getting by. Now she was being recommended as a tutor on her first day of college. That evening, as she sat at the kitchen table working through her first assignments, Lucia and Miguel orbited around her, curious and supportive. How was it? Lucia asked, peering over her shoulder at the calculus problems. Different than I expected, Maria answered. Harder in some ways, easier in others. Do you like it? Miguel wanted to know. Is it better than cleaning? Maria laughed. Yes, it's better than cleaning, but it's not just about that. She struggled to find the words. It's about becoming the person I was always meant to be. Does that make sense? Her children nodded, their eyes reflecting a new kind of respect. Not just the love they'd always had for her, but something deeper, an appreciation for her courage, for her willingness to transform herself before their eyes. As Maria turned back to her work, she felt a quiet joy settle over her. The path ahead would be challenging. She had no illusions about that. There would be difficult classes, financial strains, moments of doubt. But for the first time in decades, she was moving forward, not just surviving in place. The woman who had once hidden her intelligence was gone. In her place stood someone new, a student, a scholar, a woman unafraid to claim her rightful place in the world. And that, Maria decided as she solved another equation with confident strokes of her pencil, was worth every struggle along the way. The spring sunshine streamed through the windows of the mathematics building as Maria hurried down the hallway, her arms full of papers. 6 months into her first year of college, she had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays were packed with classes. Tuesdays and Thursdays she worked in the math tutoring center and still kept a few cleaning shifts to supplement her scholarship stipend. Weekends were sacred family time, though increasingly they involved all three Alvarez family members hunched over textbooks at the kitchen table. "Ms. Alvarez, do you have a minute?" Maria turned to see Professor Wilson, the department's linear algebra instructor, waving her down. Although she wasn't in his class, they had met through the tutoring center where Maria had quickly become one of the most requested tutors. "I have about 5 minutes before my shift starts," she said, checking her watch. "Perfect. I wanted to talk to you about the summer research program." He handed her a brochure. "Dr. Rivera suggested you might be interested." Maria glanced at the glossy paper. "Research? But I'm just a freshman." Professor Wilson laughed. "A freshman who's already completed the sophomore math sequence. You're not exactly typical, Ms. Alvarez." It was true. After testing out of Calculus Thar, Maria had thrown herself into her coursework with an intensity that surprised even her professors. She maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA despite taking an accelerated course load. The material that seemed to baffle other students made perfect sense to her, as if she were simply remembering things she had always known rather than learning them for the first time. The program pairs students with faculty mentors for 8 weeks, Professor Wilson explained. It includes a housing allowance and a $5,000 stipend. Maria's eyes widened. $5,000 would make a huge difference for her family. With Lucia starting college in the fall, every extra penny mattered. "I'll think about it," she promised, tucking the brochure into her bag. "The deadline's Friday," he reminded her, "and for what it's worth, several of us have already discussed having you join our research groups. You'd have your pick of projects." As Maria continued to the tutoring center, her mind raced with possibilities. A year ago, she had been cleaning these same hallways invisible to the academic world around her. Now professors were competing for her to join their research projects. The change was still difficult to comprehend. The tutoring center was buzzing with activity when she arrived. End-of-semester panic had set in, and students crowded around the table seeking help with final projects and exam preparation. "Thank goodness you're here," the center coordinator said as Maria signed in. "Your line is already forming." Sure enough, 3 students waited near her assigned table, looking desperate. Maria set down her things and took a deep breath, slipping into her tutor persona. Calm, patient, encouraging. She had discovered she had a talent for explaining complicated concepts in simple terms, for finding the exact point where a student's understanding broke down and rebuilding it from there. "Who's first?" she asked with a smile. For the next 2 hours, Maria guided struggling students through the mysteries of calculus and statistics. She drew diagrams, invented memory tricks, and occasionally provided the gentle push of confidence that made all the difference. It was exhausting but deeply satisfying work. "I finally get it," said her last student of the day, a baseball player named Tony who had been struggling with probability all semester. "It's like, when you explain, it actually makes sense." "That's because it does make sense," Maria told him. "Math always makes sense, it's just that sometimes the explanation doesn't." As Tony packed up his materials, looking relieved, he paused. "Can I ask you something? Is it true you were a janitor here before you were a student?" Maria nodded, used to the question by now. "I worked on the cleaning staff, yes." "And you taught yourself calculus from like books?" "And videos," she added. "The internet is an amazing resource if you use it right." Tony shook his head in wonder. "That's crazy. I can barely learn this stuff with a professor, tutors, and all the resources on campus. I don't know how you did it alone." Maria had never thought about it that way. "I guess when you love something, the work doesn't feel as hard." "Do you ever miss your old job?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. Did she miss cleaning? The physical fatigue, the invisibility, the constant worry about making ends meet? "I miss parts of it," she answered honestly. "I miss the quiet, the simplicity, and some of the people. But this..." She gestured to the tutoring center, to her books, to everything her new life encompassed. "This is where I belong. I just didn't know it for a long time." After her shift ended, Maria walked across campus to the science building where she still kept a few cleaning hours each week. The familiar routine of emptying trash cans and wiping down surfaces was almost meditative after the mental exertion of tutoring. She liked keeping this connection to her past life, this reminder of where she had started. As she mopped the hallway outside the physics labs, her phone buzzed with a text from Lucia. "Got my financial aid package. Call me." Maria's heart raced as she dialed her daughter's number. Lucia had been accepted to 3 colleges, including Westlake, where Maria studied, but everything depended on financial aid. "Mom," Lucia answered on the first ring, "I got a full ride to State University, tuition, housing, everything." Maria leaned against her mop, overcome with emotion. "Mija, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." The letter specifically mentioned, "My essay about you," Lucia continued excitedly. "About how you inspired me by going back to school. The scholarship committee said it was the most compelling story they read this year." Tears pricked at Maria's eyes. All those years of stressing the importance of education, of helping with homework, of sacrificing to create opportunities for her children, and now both she and her daughter would be college students together, each with full scholarships. "We did it, Mom," Lucia said softly. "Both of us, we really did it." After finishing her cleaning shift and driving home, Maria found her small apartment transformed. Lucia and Miguel had decorated with streamers and balloons. A cake sat on the table next to a stack of envelopes. "What's all this?" Maria asked, setting down her keys. "Celebration time," Miguel announced. Lucia got her scholarship and he gestured to the envelopes. "You've got some news, too." Maria picked up the top envelope. It was from the mathematics department. Inside was a formal letter notifying her that she had been selected as the department's outstanding first-year student, an honor that came with a $1,000 prize. The second envelope contained a letter from Professor Thornton, officially inviting her to join his research team for the summer program. The third was from the Ramirez Foundation, informing her that her scholarship had been renewed for the following year, with an additional merit bonus. "How did you get these?" Maria asked, stunned. "Dr. Rivera called me," Lucia explained. "She wanted to make sure we could surprise you properly. She's coming over later, by the way. And Professor Thornton, and a few others." "Others?" Maria felt suddenly overwhelmed. "Lucia, the apartment is a mess. I haven't had time to clean or cook." "Mom," Lucia interrupted gently, taking the letters from Maria's trembling hands. "You don't have to clean or cook. This isn't about being a perfect housekeeper, it's about celebrating you. The mathematician, the scholar, the inspiration. Let other people take care of you for once." Maria sank into a kitchen chair, fighting back. Tears. Her whole life she had been the caretaker, the one who made sure everyone else's needs were met. The idea of being celebrated, of being the center of attention, was both wonderful and terrifying. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Miguel told her, giving her shoulders a quick squeeze. "Just enjoy it. You've earned it." Within an hour, the small apartment was filled with people. Dr. Rivera arrived with a bottle of champagne. Professor Thornton brought his wife, a kind-eyed woman who taught high school English. Some of Maria's fellow students came, including Diane, her adult classmate who had become a close friend. Even Pete from campus security showed up with a homemade casserole. As Maria moved through her crowded living room, accepting congratulations and answering questions about her summer research plans, she caught sight of herself in the mirror by the door. The woman reflected there was someone she was still getting to know. Confident, engaged, respected for her mind. There was a lightness to her that had nothing to do with physical weight, but rather the lifting of a burden she had carried so long she'd forgotten it was there. "Speech," someone called out, just as they had at her scholarship celebration months before. This time Maria didn't hesitate. "A year ago," she began, her voice clear and steady. "I was cleaning the same classrooms where I now take tests. I was studying in secret, embarrassed by my love of learning." She looked around at the faces watching her children, her professors, her friends. "I thought education was something that happened to other people, to younger people, to luckier people. I was wrong." She took a sip of champagne, gathering her thoughts. What I've learned this year goes far beyond calculus and composition. I've learned that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. I've learned that most barriers exist first in our minds before they exist in the world. And I've learned that when one person believes in you, truly believes in you, it becomes easier to believe in yourself. Dr. Rivera raised her glass. To Maria Alvarez, who reminds us all why we became educators in the first place. To Mom, Lucia added, who showed me that courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about being afraid and doing the thing anyway. To the future Dr. Alvarez, Professor Thornton said with a wink, the mathematics world won't know what hit it. Later that night, after the guests had gone and her children had gone to bed, Maria sat alone at the kitchen table. Before her lay her summer research proposal, still half finished. Professor Thornton's project involved number theory, an area that particularly fascinated her. The work would be challenging, pushing the boundaries of her knowledge, but she felt ready for it. Maria picked up her pencil and began to write, the symbols flowing across the page with a confidence that still sometimes surprised her. Outside, her window, the city hummed with its nighttime rhythms. Inside, in this small apartment that had witnessed so much change, Maria Alvarez continued her transformation from the woman she had been to the woman she was becoming. The journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, advanced courses, research hurdles, the continuing juggle of family and academic responsibilities. But she wasn't afraid anymore. The woman who had once hidden her intelligence, who had made herself small to avoid drawing attention, was gone. In her place was a mathematician, a scholar, a role model. As she worked through a particularly elegant proof, Maria smiled to herself. Professor Thornton was right about one thing. The mathematics world wouldn't know what hit it, and neither would anyone who underestimated the power of a simple woman with a complex mind. The next morning, Maria woke early. It was Saturday, but she had too much energy to sleep in. She made coffee and sat by the window, watching the neighborhood come to life. An idea had been forming in her mind for weeks, and today felt like the right time to give it shape. She opened her laptop and began to type, the Maria Alvarez Scholarship for Non-Traditional Students. It would start small, maybe just enough to cover books for one student. But someday, she hoped, it would grow into something that could change lives, the way her life had been changed. For now, though, she had homework to finish, research to complete, and a family to love. Maria closed the laptop, saving the scholarship idea for later. There would be time for that. Time for everything she wanted to do. Outside, the sun rose higher, promising a beautiful day. Maria Alvarez, student of mathematics and life, went to wake her children. The future, bright, challenging, and full of possibilities, was waiting.